Welcome to AudioCert, where the official study guides are brought to life. Welcome, everyone, to a truly critical deep dive here on AudioCert. Today, we're cracking open CEHv13 Module 9, focusing entirely on social engineering. Now, when we talk cybersecurity, our minds often jump straight to firewalls, encryption, and, catching software bugs, all those complex digital defenses. But what if the biggest vulnerability isn't actually in the code? What if it's, well, the person sitting right in front of the screen?
That's exactly right. While technical safeguards are absolutely non-negotiable, social engineering really highlights a fundamental truth, one that's often overlooked. Humans are, quite consistently, the weakest link in almost any security chain. It's less about hacking lines of code and much more about subtly but powerfully hacking the human mind itself.
Hacking people's minds. Wow, that feels, far more insidious and frankly a bit unsettling than just code vulnerabilities. So social engineering is this incredibly cunning art of psychological manipulation.
Precisely.
It's the art of convincing you, the listener, to do things you probably shouldn't or reveal information you definitely shouldn't be revealing. And understanding this isn't just crucial for ethical hackers testing defenses. It's vital for, well, everyone looking to bolster their personal and organizational security in our increasingly complex digital world. Today, we're not just listing threats. We're going to trace the complete life cycle of a social engineering attack, from the attacker's very first research step all the way to the potentially devastating fallout. And, crucially, how we can break that chain at every single turn.
Okay, let's unpack this fascinating aspect of cybersecurity. So, to start our journey, when we say social engineering, what exactly are we talking about at its core? How would you define it for someone just tuning in?
Well, at its most basic level, social engineering is the art, and I'd also say the science, of convincing people to reveal confidential information. Or sometimes to perform actions they normally wouldn't.
What's really fascinating here is how profoundly effective it is and why it's so effective. It's because it exploits human nature itself, rather than solely relying on, say, technological flaws. Attackers rely on the fact that people are often unaware of the value of the information they possess access to. Or sometimes they just become careless in protecting it.
That sounds a lot like a classic con artist trick.
It really is. You can think of it like a skilled con artist, absolutely. But one who operates in the digital age, or often in a hybrid realm, blending online and offline tactics. The mark isn't just some individual on a street corner anymore. It's often an employee, someone with legitimate access to an organization's most sensitive data.
Right.
The art part comes from the immense ingenuity and, frankly, creativity required from the attacker to graft a believable scenario, a convincing story. While the science part draws heavily on established psychological principles to manipulate human decision-making. So the bottom line here is that there's no single piece of software or hardware that can just fix this. Constant vigilance, a healthy dose of skepticism, and a deep understanding of these psychological triggers. That's really our only reliable defense.
Okay, so let's talk about those triggers. You mentioned psychology. Attackers aren't just randomly guessing, right? They're exploiting predictable human behaviors. What are some of these key psychological triggers they really lean on?
Yeah, they absolutely do. Attackers expertly pull on these ingrained human tendencies. Let's break down a few of the most powerful ones. First up, there's authority. Most people are, generally conditioned from a young age to obey figures of authority.
Sure, like a boss or police.
Exactly. A manager, a police officer, or even just someone who appears to be in a position of power. So an attacker might call an employee claiming to be, say, a network administrator. They might demand account credentials, saying it's to fix an urgent system issue. And the victim often complies out of that perceived obligation to authority.
Okay, that makes sense. What else?
Then there's urgency. This trigger focuses on creating that feeling of an immediate need for action. You have to act now to avoid some negative consequence or maybe seize a fleeting opportunity.
Like those phishing emails saying, your account is locked, click here, and now W.
Precisely. Think of ransomware, too, with its aggressive countdown timers threatening data loss if you don't pay up quickly. Phishing emails often use phrases like, act now, or your account will be suspended, to compel that immediate unthinking response. Now, this is slightly different from scarcity. Scarcity is more about the limited availability of something, a resource, an offer, like only 5 left, or a limited time deal. That feeling can override critical thinking because of the fear of missing out.
Ah, okay. So urgency is about time pressure, scarcity is about limited supply pressure.
You got it. Both create pressure, but the focus is different. Urgency is act now, or else scarcity is get it before it's gone.
Mm.
Another really potent trigger is trust. This one can take time. Attackers often invest effort in building a trusting relationship with victims first. They might masquerade as a helpful colleague or maybe a security expert, just building rapport, only to exploit that trust later.
Wow, that's patient.
It can be. They might introduce themselves as, say, a security expert, claim they've noticed unusual errors from the victim's system, and then guide them to download a fix, which is, of course, malware.
And you also mentioned greed.
Ah, yes, greed. This appeals directly to that desire for something for nothing. Promises of big rewards, free gifts, maybe sudden wealth. These can entice individuals to divulge information or click malicious links. An attacker might even pretend to be a competitor and offer a significant reward to an employee for revealing critical company secrets. The real insight here, I think, is how deeply these attacks often succeed, not because of some super complex tech flaw, but because they expertly exploit our fundamental human inclinations, our desire to be helpful, to trust, or sometimes even our fear.
That's a really fascinating look at the individual psychology involved. But as you said, it's not just about individual weaknesses, is it? What kind of organizational issues create fertile ground for these social engineers?
You're absolutely right. It's definitely a multifaceted problem. Several systemic issues within an organization can really contribute to its susceptibility. First off, and this is a big one, insufficient security training. Employees often just lack awareness of common social engineering tricks. They simply don't know what to look for, which makes them, unfortunately, easy targets. It's a really fundamental gap in defense.
So they don't recognize the bait.
Exactly. Then there's the issue of unregulated access to information. When too many employees have access to sensitive data without proper need-to-know restrictions, the potential attack surface just dramatically increases. Think about a company's database. It's a prime asset. It needs stringent access controls. If everyone can see everything, then just one compromised account could potentially expose it all.
Right. The principle of least privilege isn't being followed.
Precisely. And critically, the lack of security policies themselves, the absence of a solid foundational security infrastructure. Things like clear password policies, information sharing guidelines, rules about access privileges. This is a huge weakness. Think of it this way. A company without robust security policies is like a really valuable building with all its doors and windows just left unlocked.
Yeah, practically inviting trouble.
It's practically inviting intrusion, exactly, regardless of how strong its actual walls might be.
So, given these inherent human behaviors we've talked about and these organizational weaknesses, why does social engineering remain such a persistently effective threat in cybersecurity? Why does it keep working so well, even with all our technological advancements?
That's a great question, and it remains effective for several key reasons, really highlighting its unique position in the threat landscape. First, as we've touched on, human behavior is the most susceptible factor. Unlike, say, network security issues that can often be patched with a software update, human beings are inherently variable. We're susceptible to psychological manipulation. We are often that weakest link that no amount of technology alone can fully secure.
You can't patch a person.
You really can't, not in the same way. Second, it's difficult to detect. Social engineering attempts often blend almost seamlessly into normal business interactions. This makes them incredibly challenging to spot unless you have a high degree of skepticism and, importantly, good training. Third, there's really no specific hardware or software defense for social engineering itself. You can't just go out and buy an anti-social engineering appliance off the shelf. It requires a multifaceted approach involving technology, yes, but also strong policy and continuous human education.
So, attackers are bypassing the tech defenses by targeting the people.
That's the insidious insight, isn't it? While we're busy building higher digital walls, attackers are simply finding ways to charm the gatekeepers into opening the gates.
Okay, so before any attack truly begins, these social engineers do their homework. They don't just pick a random target out of a hat. They meticulously gather intelligence. Where are they getting all this crucial information from?
Yeah, this reconnaissance phase is absolutely critical for them. They're piecing together a comprehensive profile of the target organization and potential victims. And they gather this information from various sources, many of which are surprisingly public. Official websites, for instance, are often a goldmine. You can find employee names, job titles, sometimes even email addresses listed publicly. Advertisements can reveal insights into products, company offers, general business direction, all useful for crafting believable pretexts or stories later on. Blogs, forums, and other online spaces are also incredibly useful. Employees often inadvertently share basic personal details or organizational information in these more informal settings.
Like on LinkedIn or even company forums.
Exactly. And finally, social engineers often pay special attention to what we call perimeter people. Think about security guards, receptionists, help desk workers. They observe their routines, look for potential oversights, understand how they operate.
So it's almost like they're acting like an investigative journalist, meticulously collecting all these scattered facts from public sources.
That's a perfect analogy. This data then forms the basis for their deception. It allows them to construct a compelling narrative, a believable story. They might learn, for instance, who reports to whom within the company, what projects are currently active, or even just who is known for being particularly helpful or maybe a bit rushed.
So with all that information gathered, who are the primary targets within a company for these types of attacks? Who do social engineers usually prey on?
Well, they prey on those who have access or influence, or sometimes simply those individuals who are conditioned to be helpful. The most common targets usually include a few key roles: receptionists and help desk personnel, for example. These individuals are often explicitly trained to be helpful.
Right, it's their job.
It is. And so they can be tricked into divulging things like internal phone numbers, maybe resetting passwords, or even just redirecting calls to sensitive departments, especially when an attacker sounds legitimate and, crucially, urgent. Technical support executives are another key target. They possess the metaphorical keys to fix things, which also means they often have access to sensitive systems and information. Attackers might try impersonating senior management, maybe claiming they need sensitive info to resolve some fabricated technical issue.
And the system admins.
Oh, absolutely. System administrators. As the maintainers of the core systems, they possess critical information operating system types, network configurations, administrative passwords. They are extremely high-value targets. Compromising a sysadmin can be catastrophic for an organization. And let's not forget senior executives. We're talking chief executive officers, or CEOs, chief financial officers, CFOs, and leaders of critical departments like finance and human resources, or HR. These individuals hold critical, strategic, and sensitive organizational information. Attackers often seek to compromise these individuals directly to get the highest value data.
So it sounds like these different roles represent different doors into the organization's information vault, so to speak.
That's a great way to put it.
And a social engineer just figures out which door looks easiest to unlock using their deceptive tactics. It's all about finding that path of least resistance.
Exactly. Finding the person most likely to comply under the right circumstances.
Now, while social engineering might sometimes seem like a soft attack, relying on manipulation rather than brute force hacking the consequences for an organization can be absolutely devastating. What's the real cost when one of these attacks actually succeeds?
You're right to emphasize that. The repercussions can be truly substantial and incredibly far-reaching. First, you have the potential for significant economic losses. Imagine competitors stealing sensitive information, like product development plans or crucial intellectual property. That can lead to substantial, direct financial harm.
Yeah, losing your competitive edge.
Exactly. Then there's the severe damage to goodwill. If sensitive organizational data gets leaked, it erodes customer trust. It severely harms the company's reputation, which is incredibly difficult and very expensive to try and rebuild.
Trust is hard to earn, easy to lose.
Very true. Next is the loss of privacy. If an organization fails to protect the privacy of its stakeholders, customers, employees, partners, it can lead to a mass exodus of trust, hefty regulatory fines, and potentially the discontinuation of important business associations. And, in the most extreme cases, a series of severe social engineering attacks, especially when coupled with major reputational damage and legal fallout, can actually force an organization into temporary or even permanent closure.
Wow, so it can be existential.
It absolutely can. The real insight here is how these seemingly soft attacks, these manipulations, can have truly hard, potentially business-ending impacts on a company.
Okay, so this isn't usually just a spur-of-the-moment thing, is it? It sounds like social engineers follow a pretty deliberate, almost like theatrical process to achieve their goals.
That's a great way to put it, actually. Attackers almost always execute social engineering attacks through distinct, methodical steps. Much like a carefully planned military operation or, as you say, a theatrical production. The very first phase is always research the target company. This initial step involves gathering extensive information. What's the nature of their business? Where are they located? How many employees do they have? Other operational facts. This often involves things like thoroughly browsing the company's website, looking at social media, maybe even dumpster diving for discarded documents if they can.
The recon phase.
Exactly, the recon.
Right.
Once that research is reasonably complete, the attacker will select a target. Based on the information they've gathered, they identify a specific individual or perhaps a specific role within the organization that they believe would be most susceptible to manipulation or maybe most useful to compromise. After selecting the target, the attacker then works to develop a relationship. This is where the social aspect really comes into play. The attacker tries to cultivate some kind of rapport, maybe offering assistance, engaging in seemingly innocent conversations online or offline, all with the goal of establishing trust.
Building that false sense of security.
Precisely. And then finally, the attacker will exploit the relationship. This is the payoff phase for them. The attacker leverages that carefully established trust to extract the sensitive information they were after from the beginning, details about accounts, financial information, upcoming company plans, whatever it is they need for their malicious action.
It really is like a meticulously choreographed play, isn't it? The attacker researches the setting and the characters, they cast their victim, they write a believable script, which is the relationship building part, and then they deliver the performance, the exploitation, to achieve their sinister goal.
It's truly a deliberate and calculated process.
Absolutely. Very calculated. So with all this planning and this deep psychological insight, how do these attacks actually play out in the wild? From what we've discussed, it sounds like there are many different avenues an attacker might take.
Oh, indeed. Social engineering attacks generally fall into three broad categories, each with its own unique set of sinister techniques. This allows attackers to leverage various channels to deceive their victims. We typically group them into human-based, computer-based, and mobile-based social engineering.
Okay.
Why don't we delve into the direct sort of person-to-person approaches first, the human-based ones?
Yeah, let's do that. These sound like the classic cons, often relying on direct interaction, whether that's face-to-face or maybe voice-to-voice over the phone.
Precisely. Let's start with maybe the most common one, impersonation. This is simply where an attacker pretends to be someone legitimate or someone authorized in order to mislead a target. And it can happen in person, over the phone, email, you name it. For instance, an attacker might pose as a technical support agent. They could call an employee and say something like, "Sir, this is Matthew from technical support at X company. Last night we had a system crash. Could you just give me your ID and password so I can check your data?"
And people fall for that.
Often enough, yes. It exploits trust in problem solvers and maybe the victim's own lack of technical proficiency. Or they might pose as a repairman, maybe an aircon express technician, using professional-sounding terms like HVAC, that's heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, just to gain credibility and maybe physical access to sensitive areas of a building.
Right, okay. Now, moving into the purely auditory domain, you mentioned Vishing. That's Voice over Internet Protocol, or VoIP, phishing, right? So impersonation specifically over the phone.
That's correct. Vishing attackers leverage VoIP technology, and they often use caller ID spoofing to make the call look like it's coming from a legitimate number, to trick individuals into revealing critical information. An attacker might, for example, call a company's help desk, pretending to be a senior official, maybe feigning extreme urgency, something like, "I'm about to miss a crucial deadline. I'll get fired if I can't log in." The goal is to pressure the help desk worker into quickly resetting a password without following proper verification procedures, thus granting the attacker network access.
Wow. Playing on their fear of getting someone else in trouble.
Exactly. They also commonly pose as tech support, maybe claiming to troubleshoot a non-existent network problem and then asking for user IDs and passwords to diagnose it.
Then there's a really simple but incredibly effective technique, eavesdropping, just unauthorized listening.
Yes, simple but effective. Eavesdropping just refers to an unauthorized person listening in on a conversation, or maybe reading others' messages. This could be physical listening, or intercepting digital communications like emails or instant messages. Attackers can gain sensitive info like passwords or business plans just by being in the right place at the right time, or by monitoring network traffic.
And the visual version of that is shoulder surfing.
Right. Shoulder surfing is where attackers literally look over someone's shoulder as they key in information like passwords or maybe personal identification numbers, PINs, at an ATM, automated teller machine. They can do this discreetly in person, or sometimes even from a distance using vision-enhancing devices like binoculars, or by installing tiny, hidden cameras near keyboards or keypads.
And then there's the one that sounds really old school, but you said it's remarkably effective. Dumpster diving. Literally looking for treasure in someone else's trash.
It definitely is still effective, surprisingly so. Dumpster diving is simply the process of retrieving sensitive personal or organizational information from trash bins. Attackers can unearth all sorts of confidential data, user IDs, old passwords, network diagrams, even internal policy manuals or organizational charts.
Oh, way.
Oh yeah. They might find old phone lists revealing employee names and numbers, or maybe memos containing useful instructions or operational details. The attacker here really acts like a scavenger, sifting through what others consider waste to find these overlooked pieces of a puzzle that, when put together, can reveal critical vulnerabilities.
Wow. Okay, now this next one sounds like a really clever twist. Reverse social engineering. You said instead of the attacker approaching the victim, they actually make the victim come to them.
That's right. This one is more complex and requires significant preparation from the attacker. The perpetrator positions themselves as some kind of knowledgeable professional, maybe an expert. They essentially create a problem first, and then entice organization employees to seek their advice to fix it.
How would they do that?
Well, for example, they might subtly sabotage something, maybe corrupt a user's workstation or make it appear corrupted. Then they advertise themselves as the solution. They might leave a fake business card nearby, or maybe even place their contact number directly onto a fabricated error message that pops up on the screen.
Huh. That's sneaky.
Very. So the unsuspecting users then call the attacker for support, and in the process of fixing the problem they created, the attacker subtly manipulates the conversation to draw out the information they actually want.
It's like that analogy you use, the mechanic who secretly loosens the screw in your car, then conveniently advertises their repair services nearby. When you break down, they fix it, all while learning everything about your car's vulnerabilities.
That's a perfect way to visualize it.
Okay, we also have piggybacking. You described this as gaining entry into a secured area with the consent of an authorized person, often by exploiting common courtesy.
Correct. For example, an attacker might walk up to a secured door just as an employee is badging in. They might make eye contact, maybe look flustered, and ask, "Oh, could you hold the door? I forgot my ID badge at my desk." Out of politeness or wanting to be helpful, the authorized person often complies and holds the door.
Right. Now, how is that different from tailgating?
Tailgating is similar but crucially different because it happens without explicit consent. Tailgating involves accessing a secured building or area by closely following an authorized person through an access-controlled door before it closes. The authorized person might hold the door open just out of politeness for the person behind them, and the attacker, who might be wearing a fake badge or just look like they belong, slips in right behind them. They're exploiting social norms rather than making a direct request like in piggybacking.
Got it. Okay, then there's baiting, which you said plays on human curiosity and greed.
Yes. Baiting involves attackers offering end users something alluring, maybe a free gift, a chance to win something, or some kind of tantalizing information in exchange for crucial data like login details. A really common method is leaving physical devices, like USB, universal serial bus, flash drives, lying around in public locations within a company, parking lots, elevators, bathrooms. These drives are often labeled enticingly, maybe something like Employee Salary Information 2024 or Confidential Project Files.
Oh, I can see people plugging that in.
Exactly. When a curious or maybe greedy victim finds it and plugs it into their computer, malicious files automatically download and execute, infecting the system and potentially giving the attacker control. Now, quid pro quo is a specific type of baiting. It literally means something for something. In this scenario, attackers might call numerous random numbers within a company, claiming to be from technical support. They wait until they find someone who actually does have a genuine technical issue.
And then they offer to help.
Right. They offer their service to resolve the problem. But in exchange, they ask for confidential data, maybe login credentials, or they might instruct the victim to execute specific commands that actually install malware.
Okay. And elicitation sounds like a more subtle approach about extracting specific information without the victim even realizing they're being targeted.
Elicitation is definitely more subtle. It involves engaging a victim in what seems like a normal, disarming conversation, but subtly steering it to gather relevant details. It requires really excellent social skills from the attacker. They need to seize professional or social opportunities to draw out information indirectly without ever directly asking for sensitive details that might raise suspicion.
Wow, okay. That covers a lot of the direct human interaction methods. Now, let's shift gears. What about the attacks where the computer system itself is instrumental in the deception and exploitation, the digital cons?
Indeed. The digital realm offers a vast playground for social engineers, and phishing is probably the cornerstone technique here. As most people know, it's where an attacker sends an illegitimate email or maybe provides a link falsely claiming to be from a legitimate source. The goal is always to acquire a user's personal or account information. They'll go to lengths like registering fake domain names that look similar to real ones, building convincing look-alike websites, and then sending out mass emails containing these malicious links.
And why does it work so often?
Its success often boils down to a few things. Users' lack of knowledge about security indicators like checking URLs carefully, being visually deceived by these very convincing fake sites, and often just not paying enough attention to the details like the actual uniform resource locator or URL they're clicking on.
And phishing isn't just one single thing, right? You mentioned there are many variations.
Yes, absolutely. It's a very broad category. We have spear phishing, for instance. Instead of mass emails, this is a highly targeted attack directed at specific individuals or maybe small groups within an organization. The messages are crafted with specialized, personalized content. They often appear to come from a trusted internal source, like maybe the target's manager or a colleague. This makes them far more convincing and usually yields higher success rates for stealing things like login credentials, financial information, or even trade secrets.
Okay, so much more focused.
Much more focused. Then there's whaling. This is a specific type of spear phishing that targets the really big fish, the high-profile executives. Think CEOs, CFOs, maybe politicians or celebrities, people who possess complete access to highly valuable and confidential information. The emails or websites used in whaling attacks are meticulously designed to mimic official communications, specifically targeting that executive leadership.
Going after the top brass.
Exactly. Another interesting one is farming. Now, this is a bit different. It's where attackers execute malicious programs on a victim's computer, or maybe on a server, that automatically redirects the victim's web traffic to an attacker-controlled website, even if the user types the correct URL into their browser.
Wait, even if I type the right address, how does that work?
Yeah, it's why it's sometimes called phishing without a lure. It can happen in a couple of ways. One is through DNS cache poisoning. DNS is the domain name system. It's like the phone book of the internet. Attackers modify the Internet Protocol, or IP, address associated with a legitimate website on a DNS server. So when users request that site, they get redirected to the fake one controlled by the attacker. The other main way is through host file modification. Malicious code, often delivered as, say, an email attachment, executes and modifies the local host file on the user's own computer. This file acts like a local DNS override, so the user system is tricked into directing traffic for legitimate websites straight to the fraudulent ones.
So it's like that analogy you used earlier, the malicious traffic controller secretly changing the street signs. Even if I try to drive to my bank using the correct address, I get sent to a fake bank without realizing it.
That's a perfect analogy for farming.
Wow. That's a lot of different ways phishing can get you. And I assume to make it even easier for attackers, there are probably specific tools designed just for this.
Oh, absolutely. Attackers definitely use various phishing tools to automate and enhance their campaigns. Generate fake login pages, send spoofed emails, capture victim data, you name it. The Social Engineering Toolkit, or SET for example, is a well-known open-source Python-driven tool. It's primarily used for penetration testing, specifically focused on social engineering. It's designed to perform advanced attacks against the human element, exploiting trust or fear through vectors like email, malicious websites, even infected USB drives.
Okay, now here's where things get even more concerning with modern technology. We're talking about artificial intelligence, AI, really amplifying this threat, specifically crafting phishing emails with ChatGPT or similar AI-powered tools.
Indeed. This is a significant development. Generative AI technologies like ChatGPT are truly revolutionizing how attackers create phishing emails, making them much more deceptive and, frankly, harder to spot. AI can swiftly generate incredibly varied and contextually relevant email content, dramatically reducing the manual effort needed to compose convincing fakes.
And they can sound really authentic.
Yes. By learning from vast data sets of text and email, AI can effectively mimic the language, the tone, the communication style of legitimate organizations, or even specific individuals. This helps these emails appear much more authentic and can even help them bypass traditional security filters that look for clumsy wording or grammatical errors.
Wow.
This is crucial for tricking employees into downloading malware or clicking malicious links, especially when the AI crafts messages that generate a strong sense of urgency or present seemingly irresistible offers.
And you mentioned it can even mimic a specific person's writing style. That's terrifying.
Yes, that's a key capability. Attackers can potentially train AI models on publicly available texts written by a target individual. Think email, social media posts, articles. The AI can then learn to replicate that person's unique vocabulary, set and structure, tone, even their typical emotional expression. Now, while AI offers huge advantages for attackers, consistency, scalability, immunity to human limitations like fatigue, it does currently lack genuine human intuition and that nuanced understanding of context that can still be crucial for truly convincing sophisticated impersonation. But it's getting better frighteningly fast.
Okay, so moving on from phishing, what are some other computer-based techniques we should be aware of beyond just email scams?
Certainly. Pop-up windows are still a common tactic. These are those malicious windows that suddenly appear while you're browsing the internet. They try to trick users into clicking hyperlinks that might redirect them to fake web pages asking for personal information, or worse, initiate downloads of malicious programs like keyloggers or spyware. They often try to mimic realistic operating system errors, maybe something like network connection needs reauthentication to compel that click.
Ah, the fake error messages.
Exactly. Then there's Scareware. This is a specific type of malware that essentially tricks computer users into visiting malware-infested websites or downloading or buying potentially malicious software. Scareware typically appears as alarming pop-up ads claiming your machine has been infected with viruses or spyware. These pop-ups are often designed to look like legitimate alerts from antivirus companies, and they convey a very strong sense of urgency, pressuring victims to immediately download some software to fix the supposed problem. You might see messages like stolen identity warning. Your identity is at serious risk.
Playing on fear again.
Always playing on fear or urgency.
Now, the ability to create shockingly realistic fake videos with AI, that takes impersonation to a whole new level, doesn't it? It makes it harder than ever to trust what you see online. We're talking about deepfake videos.
Absolutely. This is a major emerging threat. A deepfake attack involves using advanced machine learning, or ML, and AI technologies to create false yet incredibly convincing video or audio media of a target person. Attackers use previously recorded audio and video samples, sometimes sourced from public appearances, sometimes stolen from online accounts, to effectively clone an individual's appearance and voice. These deepfake attempts are designed to deceive online users into believing they are watching or listening to original, authentic content.
And the uses.
Often for things like blackmail, spreading disinformation, manipulating public opinion, or even potentially authorizing fraudulent actions by impersonating someone in a video call. The goal for attackers is always to create media so convincing that it's extremely difficult to discern from reality, fundamentally eroding our trust in digital content. Tools like Deepfake Lab are commonly used for creating these.
And it's not just video, is it? Imagine getting a call from your boss giving instructions. Only it's not actually your boss's voice. It's an AI-generated voice.
Yeah.
This is voice cloning.
Exactly. Voice cloning attacks using AI employs sophisticated ML algorithms to create highly convincing imitations of an individual's voice. They can replicate unique vocal characteristics, the tone, the pitch, the intonation, the speaking style.
How do they do it?
Typically, attackers first gather audio recordings of the target individual's voice. This could be from public speeches, interviews, podcasts, social media posts, even voicemail messages if they can access them. Then, this collected audio data is used to train deep learning models like convolutional neural networks or recurrent neural networks to learn the underlying patterns and nuances of the target's voice. Once trained, these neural networks can generate synthetic voice samples that mimic the target individual's voice, usually from text input provided by the attacker.
And then they use it for
Impersonation. They use these synthesized voice samples to impersonate the target in things like phone calls, voice messages, or maybe audio recordings played during a call. This can be used to try and acquire sensitive information, authorize fraudulent transactions, or even compromise security systems through social engineering. Imagine tricking someone into revealing a password over the phone by sounding exactly like their manager. Tools like ve.io are making this increasingly accessible. It's an alarming new vector for social engineering attacks.
Truly alarming. Now, shifting slightly, social networking sites. They seem like a treasure trove for attackers, given how much personal and professional information people willingly share on them. This must make impersonation on social networking sites a very potent threat.
Oh, absolutely. Platforms like Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn are so widely used and people share so much, it becomes relatively easy for attackers to create convincing fake profiles and impersonate someone. There are a couple of primary ways attackers do this. One is called angler phishing. This is a type of cyber phishing fraud specifically targeting disgruntled users or customers on social media. Attackers create fake social media accounts, impersonating an organization's help desk or customer support. They monitor for complaints, then engage with the user, often posting fake service links. Victims, believing they're interacting with a trusted source, click these malicious links, which might install malware or redirect them to fake sites asking for personal or account details.
Preying on unhappy customers.
Exactly. Then there's the more widely known catfishing attack. This is an online phishing scam where attackers perform identity theft on social media platforms to create completely fake profiles. They then use these fake accounts to build personal, sometimes even romantic, or business relationships with other users via chat. Ultimately, this leads to cyberbullying or other social engineering attempts, usually for monetary gain.
What are some signs that someone might be catfishing you online?
There are definitely some red flags to watch out for. They often avoid direct communication, refusing video calls, refusing to meet in person, being cagey about giving out a phone number. They might maintain a single profile picture for a very, very long time, maybe to falsify their age or hide inconsistencies. They might have an unusually high number of opposite gender friends or followers compared to other connections, and a big one. They frequently request money, often pretending to be in some kind of danger or facing an emergency.
Okay, good things to look out for. And beyond these direct scams, the casual use of social media by employees can have serious repercussions for their entire organization, right? These social networking threats to corporate networks.
Absolutely. It's a significant risk area. Social networking sites act as vast databases, increasing the risk of data theft or information exploitation. There's also the risk of involuntary data leakage, where employees might unknowingly post sensitive company data, especially if the company doesn't have clear policies distinguishing personal and corporate content sharing. Plus, the detailed information available on profiles enables highly targeted attacks on specific users or the company itself. Attackers use this for reconnaissance, gathering intelligence on employees, executives, even company infrastructure, which facilitates other types of attacks.
This all seems to be leading towards one ultimate devastating goal for many social engineers: stealing your entire identity. We're talking about identity theft. You called it the ultimate betrayal earlier. Could you just spell out SSN for us again?
Yes, identity theft is a very grave concern. It's legally defined as the illegal use of someone else's identification. It's a crime where an imposter steals someone's personally identifiable information that's PII for fraudulent purposes. And PII refers to any data that can be used to identify a specific individual. Things like your name, home address, your social security number, or SSN, phone number, date of birth, bank account numbers, credit card information, and so on.
That's an astonishing range of potential harm that can be done with that information. And you mentioned there are specific types of identity theft too, aren't there? It's not just one thing.
No, it's not. The threat landscape here is quite diverse. For instance, there's child identity theft. This occurs when a minor's identity is stolen. It often goes undetected for years because children don't typically monitor their credit. Their clean SSN might be used to obtain credit, loans, or even government benefits. Then there's criminal identity theft. This is when a perpetrator actually uses someone else's identity to escape criminal charges. If they get arrested, they provide the victim's name and details instead of their own.
Wow, that's awful.
It is. And another really insidious type is synthetic identity theft. This is arguably the most sophisticated. Here, the perpetrator combines a real stolen SSN, often a child's, with completely fake names, dates of birth, and addresses to create a brand new synthetic identity. This new identity is then used to open bank accounts, apply for loans, and get credit cards. It's harder to detect because there isn't a single real victim being directly impersonated initially.
Good grief.
The real insight here is just how deeply personal and potentially long-lasting the consequences of identity theft can be, especially when it's not immediately apparent that it's even happened.
That's a really comprehensive overview of the different kinds of identity theft. So how do attackers typically get their hands on all this PII in the first place? What are the common methods?
Attackers use a pretty wide variety of common techniques, unfortunately. This includes, sometimes, just the straightforward theft of physical devices, things like wallets, computers, laptops, cell phones, even backup media, which often contain loads of personal information. Social engineering itself, as we've been discussing, is a primary method for manipulating individuals into divulging their PII directly. We also see phishing used extensively, where fraudsters pretend to be from reputable organizations, banks, government agencies, popular online services to trick users into revealing PII on fake websites or in email replies. And then there's skimming. This involves stealing credit or debit card numbers using special, often hidden storage devices called skimmers or wedges. These are typically installed secretly at legitimate points of sale like gas pumps, ATMs, or retail checkouts.
Right, the little devices they hide in card readers?
Exactly those.
Okay, so with all those ways your identity can potentially be stolen, how do you even know if it's happened? How would you know your identity has been compromised? It seems crucial to be able to spot those red flags early.
You're absolutely right. Vigilance is key because, as you said, people often don't realize they're victims until they start experiencing unauthorized issues. It's paramount to watch out for these potential warning signs. For example, you might start noticing unfamiliar charges on your credit card statements. That's a big one. Or maybe you discover that more than one tax return has been filed under your name when you go to file yours.
Uh-oh.
Receiving calls from creditors or debt collectors about unknown accounts opened in your name is another major red flag. Or perhaps you get notifications from companies stating that your personal information was compromised in a data breach they experienced.
Yeah, those breach notifications seem more and more common.
They do. Also, watch out for things like suddenly not receiving expected bills or statements in the mail could indicate mail theft or rerouting, or being denied access to your own accounts or denied loans or services for reasons you don't understand, perhaps due to negative activity on fraudulent accounts.
So it really requires paying close attention to your financial and personal accounts.
Absolutely. Vigilance is key to detecting these issues early, because often, by the time you realize something is wrong, significant damage may have already been done.
Okay, let's pivot now to our mobile devices. They're practically extensions of ourselves these days, right? We do everything on them: banking, communication, shopping. This must make them prime targets for social engineering as well.
Oh, absolutely. Mobile devices are a huge target area. Attackers definitely exploit the ubiquity of mobile applications. They try to trick users by either imitating popular legitimate applications or by creating entirely new malicious ones that offer attractive features. They then submit these fake or malicious apps to official or third-party app stores, often using names very similar to the real apps.
And users download them thinking they're legit.
Exactly. Unsuspecting users download these apps, thinking they're getting a useful tool or game, but instead, they infect their devices with malware. For instance, in publishing malicious apps, attackers might create, say, a fake gaming app with cool-sounding features and a name very close to a popular real game. They publish it, maybe even run ads for it. When users download and install it, the hidden malware starts working, potentially sending the user's credentials, contact details, location data, and other sensitive information back to the attacker.
Wow. And what about modifying existing apps?
Yes, that's another technique called repackaging legitimate apps. In this scenario, a malicious developer downloads a legitimate, popular game or application from an official marketplace. They then essentially take it apart, embed malware within the legitimate code, and then repackage it. This compromised version is then typically uploaded to third-party unofficial application stores, sometimes offered for free when the original was paid.
And people download it from those unofficial stores.
Right. When users download and install this repackaged app, the embedded malware collects their information and sends it back to the attacker, while the app might still appear to function normally on the surface.
Sneaky. What else happens on mobile?
We also see smishing, which we touched on briefly. That's SMS phishing. It uses the short message service, or SMS text messaging system on cellular phones or other mobile devices to lure users into taking immediate action. This could be prompting them to download malware, visit a malicious web page by clicking a link in the text, or perhaps call a fraudulent phone number. The messages are usually crafted to provoke an instant reaction, often requiring victims to divulge personal information or account details right then and there. You might get a text supposedly from your bank saying there's an urgent issue and you need to click a link or call a number immediately.
Okay. And with QR codes becoming so common everywhere on posters in restaurants, for logins, attackers have apparently found a way to hijack your login sessions using them. This is QRL jacking, which stands for QR code login jacking.
Yes, QRL jacking is a particularly clever and concerning social engineering attack. It exploits the login with QR code method that many web applications and services now use, think WhatsApp Web, Telegram, Discord, etc. The goal is to hijack the user's login session and gain unauthorized access to their account.
How does that work exactly?
Okay, so the attacker first needs to obtain and clone a legitimate temporary QR code from the target web service provider. They often set up a server that constantly requests fresh QR codes from the service. Then, they create a convincing phishing web page. This page displays the cloned, constantly refreshing QR code. It might look like a legitimate login portal or some other enticing page. The attacker then sends the URL, the uniform resource locator of this phishing page, to the victim, maybe via email or direct message, tricking them into visiting the page and scanning the malicious QR code with their legitimate mobile app, the one they use for the real service.
And when the victim scans the code,
When the victim scans the attacker's QR code with their app, the app thinks it's authenticating to the real service. But the authentication token, or session data, is actually intercepted by the attacker's malicious web server in the middle. This allows the attacker to authenticate on behalf of the victim and gain access to their account.
wow, so they effectively steal your session right out from under you.
Precisely. And during this process, they might also be able to obtain other details from the victim's device, like their current GPS global positioning system location, the device ID, identification, maybe even the phone's IMEI, International Mobile Equipment Identity, and SIM, Subscriber Identity Module, card details, depending on the app's permissions. This information can then be used for further malicious activities.
That's incredibly sophisticated. Are there tools specifically for this QR code cloning?
Yes, there are. Tools like QR Tiger allow attackers to create duplicate copies of legitimate static or dynamic QR codes. Some tools can even track information related to the scans like the count, time, location, and the type of device used, which helps the attacker monitor their target user.
Okay, this is all quite alarming. It's clear that social engineering exploits human nature, not just technology flaws. So the big question is, how do organizations realistically defend against such a pervasive and, well, insidious threat?
That really is the critical question, isn't it? And it's a tough one to answer definitively because, as you said, social engineers exploit fundamental human behaviors, things like courtesy, enthusiasm, helpfulness, sometimes even just naivete or fear. Since victims often may not even realize they've been deceived until much later, defense becomes incredibly challenging. Organizations really have to start by evaluating their specific risks, estimating potential losses from these kinds of attacks, and, most importantly, fostering a strong culture of awareness among all employees. Just developing security policies isn't enough. Those policies absolutely must be effectively disseminated and trained upon. They need to be formally acknowledged by employees, often with signatures confirming understanding. And crucially, they must be actively enforced, with clear consequences defined for policy violations.
So it's about culture and continuous reinforcement.
Exactly. The main objective of any defense strategy against social engineering has to be creating broad user awareness, establishing robust internal network controls to limit potential damage, and implementing comprehensive security policies, plans, and processes that are actually followed.
Okay, let's dig into those policies. Strong, clear policies seem like the bedrock of any good security posture. Could you break down two key areas? Password policies and physical security policies.
Absolutely. These are foundational. Let's start with password policies. Clear guidelines here are absolutely crucial for enhancing password security across the organization. Key elements include mandating regular changes, forcing users to change passwords periodically. Educating employees to avoid guessable passwords is vital to discourage using easily guessable information, especially answers to common social engineering questions like, where were you born? Or what's your pet's name?
Things easily found online.
Precisely. Policies should also include things like account blocking after a certain number of failed login attempts. Encouraging or enforcing length and complexity is important. Minimum 68 characters is often cited, but longer is better, combining alphanumeric characters and special symbols. And crucially, stress, non-disclosure. Passwords should never be disclosed to anyone, period. As general password management advice, employees should be strongly discouraged from sharing computer accounts. Never reuse the same password for different accounts, especially work versus personal. And absolutely never store passwords physically, like on a notepad or sticky note or electronically in an insecure manner. Right, no password 123 sticky note under the keyboard.
Please, no. Now, for physical security policies, these are just as vital for preventing unauthorized physical access, which can enable other attacks. This includes things like employee identification, issuing ID cards, maybe uniforms, combined with other access control measures like keycard readers or biometrics. Requiring visitor escorts is important. All visitors should ideally be escorted, especially when moving beyond designated public areas or lounges. Implementing restricted access is key, limiting access to sensitive areas like server rooms, data centers, or executive offices only to specifically authorized personnel. And critically, ensuring proper document disposal. Using cross-cut shredders or secure burn bins for old documents containing valuable information is essential to prevent dumpster diving successes. For digital media, simply deleting files isn't enough. Disks should be overwritten multiple times or physically destroyed before disposal. Okay, those policies sound essential. But how can organizations actively measure and maybe improve their human defenses? It's one thing to have a policy, another to know if it's working.
That's a great point. A structured approach is really key here, often referred to as a defense strategy campaign. This involves a few steps. First, conducting regular simulated social engineering campaigns. These are basically controlled tests where the organization uses different social engineering techniques, fake phishing emails, maybe test calls on diverse groups of employees to assess their reactions and susceptibility to real attacks in a safe environment.
So ethical hacking focused on the people.
Exactly. Then, based on the result of these campaigns, you perform a gap analysis. This uses the data gathered to evaluate the organization's current security posture against industry best practices and emerging threats. It helps identify specific weaknesses or gaps in awareness or procedure. Finally, you develop remediation strategies. These are detailed plans designed to mitigate the identified weaknesses. This plan should focus heavily on educating and raising awareness among employees, often tailored to their specific roles and the types of attacks they might face, and implementing targeted mitigation strategies, maybe technical controls or policy adjustments. It really needs to be a continuous improvement cycle, not a one-off exercise.
That makes sense. Test, analyze, fix, repeat. Beyond these general policies and campaigns, what else can be done specifically to strengthen our defenses against social engineering?
Yeah, there are definitely more layers we can add to the defense. A core component is ongoing train individuals on security policies. This needs to be comprehensive training covering basic social engineering concepts, the specific techniques attackers use, the organization's own security policies, and general awareness methods. It can't be a one-time thing during onboarding.
Needs reinforcement.
Absolutely. It's also crucial to implement proper access privileges, rigorously enforcing that principle of least privilege we talked about. Establish clear administrator, user, and guest accounts with only the appropriate levels of authorization needed for their jobs. Having the presence of a proper incident response time and plan is vital. Develop clear guidelines and procedures for how employees should react quickly and effectively if they suspect or experience a social engineering attempt or an actual breach. Who do they call? What information do they provide?
And controlling access.
Yes, ensuring the availability of resources only to authorized users is fundamental. Sensitive information must be secured, encrypted, access controlled, and only accessible by those explicitly authorized. Another critical defense, especially for high-risk network services like virtual private networks or VPNs or maybe older modem pools, is to implement two-factor authentication, TFA.
Can you spell that out again?
Sure. TFA or two-factor authentication. This requires the user to present two different forms of identity proof before gaining access. Typically, it's something they know, like a password, and something they have, like a physical token, a code from an authenticator app on their phone, or maybe a biometric factor. This makes it significantly harder for attackers to gain access, even if they manage to steal a password.
A very important layer.
Extremely important. We should also ensure regular update of software, regularly patch and update all systems and software. Attackers frequently exploit known, unpatched vulnerabilities to gain initial access or gather useful information that aids their social engineering efforts.
Okay, that covers a lot of general ground. Let's zero in on phishing again, since it's so common. What are the most practical steps individuals and organizations can take to defend against phishing attacks specifically?
Right. Phishing is rampant, so specific defenses are crucial. Defense here really requires a combination of individual awareness and vigilance, backed up by technological safeguards. First, as we've said, educate individuals. Regularly conduct simulated phishing campaigns within the organization to test and, more importantly, educate employees on what to look for. Technically, enable spam filters. Configure email spam filters aggressively to detect and block emails from suspicious sources or those matching known phishing patterns. Critically, train users to avoid responding to requests for sensitive information via email or messages. Legitimate organizations rarely ask for passwords or full account numbers this way. And emphasize, never provide credentials over the phone unless you initiated the call and are absolutely certain of the recipient's identity.
That hover before you click tip seems useful too.
Yes. Always hover over links before clicking. Most email clients and browsers will show you the actual destination URL in a status bar or pop-up. Check carefully to ensure it points to the correct, legitimate location, not some look-alike domain. Also, teach people to check emails for red flags. Look for things like generic salutations, dear valued customer instead of your name, Obvious spelling errors, poor grammar, or unusual formatting. These are often common indicators of phishing emails, especially less sophisticated ones.
Right. And verify the sender.
Absolutely. Always confirm the sender's identity before providing any requested information via email, especially if the request seems unusual or out of character. Maybe call them back on a known, trusted number. When entering sensitive information online, ensure you're on HTTPS-protected websites. Look for HTTPS at the start of the URL in your browser's address bar, and usually a padlock icon. This indicates an encrypted, more secure connection.
And multi-factor authentication again.
Definitely. Implement multi-factor authentication, MFA, wherever possible. MFA, or multi-factor authentication, adds that crucial extra layer of security beyond just a password. It's essential for preventing many types of account takeovers, including those resulting from phishing. And a final practical tip. If an email or message seems suspicious, never use the contact information provided in that message. Instead, contact the organization directly using phone numbers or email addresses found on their official website or other trusted sources.
Great practical advice. Now, moving to identity theft, which is often the ultimate goal. Beyond general cybersecurity hygiene, what specific actions can individuals take to better protect their personal identity?
Protecting your personal identity requires diligence in both the physical and digital realms. Implementing these measures can significantly reduce the chances of becoming a victim of identity theft. Firstly, in the physical world, secure or shred documents. Destroy all documents containing private information, bank statements, credit card offers, medical bills before disposal. Use a cross-cut shredder ideally. Review credit card statements and bank statements regularly and carefully. Look for any unfamiliar charges or withdrawals, no matter how small. Store these statements securely. Never give personal information over the phone again unless you initiated the call and have thoroughly verified the recipient's identity and legitimacy. Be very skeptical of unsolicited calls asking for PII.
What about mail?
Keep mail secure. Empty your mailbox promptly after delivery, especially if it's not locked. Consider getting a locking mailbox if mail theft is a concern in your area. And opt for paperless options for bills and statements whenever possible to reduce the amount of sensitive physical mail you receive.
Good point. What about online?
Online, enable two-factor authentication on all online accounts that offered email, banking, social media, everything. This is one of the single most effective steps you can take. Be extremely cautious about clicking links or opening attachments in emails or instant messages, even if they seem to be from someone you know, as their account could be compromised. Avoid using public Wi-Fi. Wireless fidelity for sensitive transactions. Never access your bank account, make purchases, or enter sensitive login information while connected to unsecured public Wi-Fi networks, like those in coffee shops or airports.
Use a VPN, maybe?
Using a trusted VPN can help on public Wi-Fi, yes. Also, install host security tools like reputable antivirus software and firewalls on your personal computers and keep them updated. And a really powerful measure is to use a credit freeze. You can implement a credit freeze with the major credit bureaus Equifax, Experian, TransUnion. This prevents almost anyone from accessing your credit report without your explicit permission, making it much harder for identity thieves to open new accounts in your name.
That sounds like a really strong preventative step.
It is. It can be a bit inconvenient if you need to apply for credit yourself, as you have to temporarily lift the freeze, but the security benefit is significant.
Okay, let's talk about those AI voice clones again. With AI-generated voices becoming incredibly realistic, how do we defend against this particularly sophisticated attack vector?
Yeah, defending against voice cloning is challenging because it targets our natural reliance on voice for identification. The key is really a multi-pronged approach, combining skepticism, verification, and potentially technology. First and foremost, be skeptical of unsolicited calls. Exercise extreme caution when receiving unexpected phone calls or even audio messages, especially if they request sensitive information, ask you to perform unusual actions like transferring money, or create a strong sense of urgency or distress. Crucially, verify the identity of callers using methods beyond just recognizing their voice. If a call seems suspicious, especially for a high-stakes request, hang up and call the person back on a known, trusted number. Or use a prearranged password or security question that only the real person would know. Don't rely solely on voice anymore.
So need a secondary channel or method.
Exactly. Organizations should establish identity verification policies with clear procedures for verifying the identity of individuals during voice-based interactions, especially for critical requests like financial transactions or system access changes. This might involve callback procedures or multi-factor authentication steps. We should also educate users, employees, customers, the general public about the potential risks of voice cloning attacks and emphasize the importance of skepticism and vigilance when interacting with unknown or suspicious audio sources.
Are there technical solutions?
There are emerging solutions. Implement voice biometrics where feasible. These systems analyze unique vocal characteristics beyond simple mimicry. Also, explore anti-spoofing technologies specifically designed to detect and prevent the use of fake or synthetic voices, although these are still evolving. And whenever possible, use secure communication channels, encrypted voice call apps or platforms for sensitive conversations rather than standard phone lines.
Okay, similarly for deepfakes. When videos can be faked so convincingly, how can we possibly discern truth from deception? What are the countermeasures against deepfake attacks?
Deepfake attacks present a significant challenge to our ability to trust visual media. Defenses involve a mix of technological solutions, verification processes, and media literacy. One approach is to implement digital watermarking. This involves embedding invisible, robust codes into authentic videos at the time of creation. These watermarks can later be used to prove a video's originality and detect tampering. There's also potential in using blockchain technology. Leveraging blockchain could create immutable, time-stamped records of original digital content, allowing verification of authenticity and tracing its origins.
Interesting. What about detection?
We need to constantly improve facial recognition technologies, develop and deploy more advanced systems that are better trained to distinguish between real human faces and artificially generated or manipulated ones. And crucially, we need to develop AML tools for detection. Create specialized AI and machine learning tools specifically designed to spot the often subtle inconsistencies and artifacts present in deepfakes, things like unnatural eye movements, inconsistent lighting or shadows, flawed lip syncing, weird blurring, or other digital fingerprints left by the generation process.
So, using AI to fight AI.
In many ways, yes. We also need to focus on the human side, train the public and media professionals to critically evaluate the credibility of digital content they encounter online. Teach people to look for subtle inconsistencies, to question the source, and to seek corroborating information before accepting sensational videos at face value. And platforms need to enhance user reporting mechanisms, making it easier for users to quickly flag potentially deepfake videos for review.
Okay, switching gears slightly. Are there tools available that can act as a sort of vigilant digital watchguard, helping us identify and avoid phishing sites in real time as we browse?
Yes, definitely. There are several tools and services that provide proactive protection against phishing. Netcraft, for example, operates an anti-phishing community that functions sort of like a massive online neighborhood watch scheme. It empowers its informed members to report potentially dangerous websites. Netcraft then analyzes these reports and provides users, often via browser extensions or toolbars, with updated information and warnings about website integrity as they browse.
So, crowdsourced protection.
Essentially, yes, combined with their own analysis. Another excellent resource is PhishTank. This is a collaborative clearinghouse specifically for data and information about phishing activity across the internet. It offers an open API that's an application programming interface, which allows developers and researchers to integrate anti-phishing data directly into their own applications or security tools. Security professionals can use it to quickly check if a particular URL is a known phishing site.
Useful for developers, too.
Very. And there are other tools like Scanuri, Mijeta Phishing, ThreatCop, VirusTotal. Many offer similar services for URL analysis and threat detection, often checking against blacklists and performing real-time analysis.
Okay, great. Now, just to bring some things together, could you quickly recap some of the common targets we discussed earlier and the specific tailored defense strategies for them?
Sure, a quick summary is helpful. To provide a truly comprehensive defense, organizations really must tailor their strategies to specific roles and risks. For the front office and help desk personnel, the key is rigorous training. Never reveal passwords or sensitive information over the phone without strict verification. Enforce strong policies specifically for these critical, often targeted roles. For technical support and system administrators, education is paramount. Train them never to reveal passwords or critical information via unverified phone calls or emails, no matter how urgent the request seems. Implement strict access controls. For perimeter security, think physical guards, access points implement strict badge, token, or ideally biometric authentication. Provide ongoing security awareness training for employees regarding physical access. Ensure vigilant, well-trained security guards are present where needed.
What about general office areas?
For office areas where most employees work, conduct regular, engaging employee training on social engineering tactics. Promote best practices and maybe checklists for things like password usage and spotting suspicious emails. And always ensure visitors are properly escorted. Don't forget vendors of the target organization. Educate your external vendors about social engineering risks.
Yeah.
They can often be an unintentional entry point if they are compromised or manipulated.
And things like the mail room or server room.
Right. Secure and monitor the mailroom. Train mail handling staff to prevent theft or tampering. Keep sensitive areas like the machine room, server room, and phone closet locked at all times. Maintain an updated inventory of equipment in these areas to detect unauthorized access or removal. We mentioned company executives are high-value targets. Train them specifically never to reveal their identity, passwords, or other confidential info over unverified phone calls or emails. Implement extra verification steps for requests appearing to come from them. And finally, even the dumpsters. Keep all trash, especially from sensitive areas, in secured, possibly monitored locations until disposal. Ensure important paper data is thoroughly shredded and magnetic media is properly erased or destroyed before disposal.
That's a great summary of targeted defenses. Now, one last tool question. How can a company proactively test its own employees' resilience to phishing attacks in a structured way?
That's where dedicated simulation tools like Ophish come into the picture. Ophish is a web-based platform specifically designed for organizations to test their employees' susceptibility to various social engineering attacks, primarily phishing. It's essentially a phishing simulation tool. It provides organizations with a platform to create and launch realistic phishing campaigns against their own employees in a controlled environment.
What does it do?
It allows you to craft different types of simulated attacks, maybe an email enticing users to click a link, one trying to harvest credentials via a fake login page, one with a seemingly harmless attachment, even simulated vishing or smishing attempts. Then, it importantly captures employee responses. It tracks who clicked on a malicious link, who submitted credentials on a fake page, who reported the email, etc. It provides real-time MIS management information systems reports, allowing organizations to see trends by user, department, or job title.
So you can see where the weaknesses are.
Exactly. The primary objective is to assess susceptibility across the organization and, based on the results, help the organization reduce the real-world risks associated with employees falling prey to actual cyber threat actors. It helps target training and awareness efforts where they're needed most.
That sounds like a really valuable tool for proactive defense.
It can be, yes, when used as part of a broader awareness program.
All right. Wow. What a deep dive that was. We've covered a truly vast and incredibly important landscape today, all under the umbrella of CEHv13 Module 9, Social Engineering. Let's try and quickly recap some of the most crucial points we've discussed.
Indeed. It's a lot to cover because it's such a pervasive threat. We began by defining social engineering not just as a malicious act, but really as an art and a science of human manipulation. We emphasized that fundamental truth. Humans are very often the weakest link in any security system. We explored those key psychological triggers that attackers exploit, everything from authority and intimidation to urgency, trust, and even greed. And we identified key factors that make companies particularly vulnerable, such as insufficient security training and the lack of robust enforced security policies.
Yeah, the foundations.
Exactly. We then systematically delved into the how of these attacks, categorizing them into those three main types: human-based, computer-based, and mobile-based techniques. For human-based, we saw how impersonation can take so many forms, from that fake tech support agent or repairman to using vishing over the phone. We discussed eavesdropping, shoulder surfing, and the surprisingly effective dumpster diving. We also touched on more sophisticated tactics like reverse social engineering, the subtle art of elicitation, and those deceptive schemes like baiting and quid pro quo, and the difference between piggybacking and tailgating.
A lot of ways to trick people directly.
A lot. In the computer-based realm, phishing clearly emerged as a major player, with its many variants like spear phishing targeting specific individuals, whaling going after executives, and farming, which dangerously redirects web traffic, even from correct URLs. We highlighted how modern AI, particularly tools like ChatGPT, are significantly escalating this threat by crafting highly convincing style-mimicking emails, and how deepfake videos and voice cloning are creating entirely new, unsettling forms of impersonation that challenge our senses. Beyond that, we also cover things like malicious pop-up windows, hoax letters, spam, and scareware.
Right, and then mobile.
Our exploration of mobile-based techniques highlighted the dangers of publishing malicious apps, the sneaky repackaging of legitimate apps, the use of fake security applications as part of multi-stage attacks, smishing delivering threats via text messages, and that cunning QRL jagging that exploits QR code logins. We also spend significant time on identity theft, Understanding the types of personally identifiable information, or PII, that gets stolen, the myriad fraudulent purposes it's used for, the specific types of ID theft, from child and criminal to the complex synthetic type, the common techniques attackers use to obtain this PII, and importantly, those crucial indications or warning signs that your own identity might have been compromised. And finally, we shifted our focus squarely onto countermeasures. We emphasize the absolute need for robust, ongoing employee training, clear and enforced password and physical security policies, and proactive defense strategies like running internal social engineering campaigns and performing gap analysis. We discuss specific defenses against phishing, identity theft, voice cloning, and deepfakes, alongside useful tools like Netcraft and PhishTank for identifying threats, and the importance of auditing your own organization's resilience with platforms like Ofish.
Wow. Yeah, what this deep dive makes abundantly clear is that social engineering isn't static. It's constantly evolving. It's leveraging the latest technologies, like AI, to become even more convincing, more personalized, and harder to spot. Our defense, therefore, can't just be about software or firewalls. It has to be about continuous education, fostering critical thinking, and maintaining vigilance at absolutely every level of an organization and in our personal lives, too.
That's the core message. The insidious insight here is that the most powerful weapon in cybersecurity isn't always the most advanced technology. It's often understanding and countering psychological manipulation. And this really raises an important, maybe slightly uncomfortable question for all of us. As AI continues to advance, making social engineering attacks potentially indistinguishable from reality, fake voices, fake videos, perfectly crafted emails, how will we as individuals and as organizations learn to trust anything or anyone, online or even over the phone, without constant, almost exhausting verification?
That's a heavy thought to end on. Definitely something to keep in mind as you navigate your increasingly complex digital world. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into social engineering today. We sincerely hope you feel much more informed and, crucially, better equipped to spot and defend against these pervasive and clearly ever-evolving threats.
It was a pleasure. Until next time, keep listening to AudioCert and keep learning wherever you are.